You are too sensitive. You've heard that line so many times it doesn't even sting anymore, it just sits in your chest like a label someone glued on you years ago. You've been told you cry too easily. You've been told to toughen up. You've been told to stop taking things so personally. And maybe you've even wondered if they were right, but what if I told you, everyone has been judging you with the wrong manual? Read that again. Because this is the moment everything flips. The world has mistaken your emotional intensity for weakness, when in reality, it's a sign of something completely different, something psychology understands deeply, but society doesn't. You are not unstable. You are not overreacting. And you are definitely not too emotional. What you are is someone who feels life in high definition while everyone else is watching it in blurry low quality. You don't just notice events, you notice the tone behind the words, the tension in the room, the shift in someone's eyes before they even speak. That's not fragility. That's perception. And it's one of the rarest forms of emotional intelligence. Here's the truth, people who cry easily don't cry because they're weak, they cry because they activate emotions faster and more honestly than others. Your nervous system doesn't suppress, it responds. It doesn't fake calm, it processes truth before your mind even finishes the thought. And that sensitivity you've been apologizing for. It's not a flaw. It's a mechanism. It's your emotional radar firing before anyone else even notices the storm. But let's go deeper. Because the older you get, the more intense this becomes, not because you're getting worse, but because life has been layering you with responsibilities, disappointments, losses, memories, and moments where you had to stay strong when everything inside you wanted to collapse. Tears don't come from now alone, they come from everything before now. Every silence you held. Every emotion you swallowed. Every time you said, "It's fine," when it wasn't. And here's a thought that might hit you hard. You aren't crying because you're falling apart. You're crying because you finally stopped pretending. You finally hit an age where your emotional armor cracked, not from weakness, but from carrying too much for too long. And now your emotions come out fast, honest, unfiltered. Not because you're unstable, but because your body refuses to lie anymore. Psychologists call people like you highly sensitive, but I prefer something stronger. You're an emotional hyperceiver. A person who sees deeper, absorbs quicker, feels fuller, and processes life with an intensity most people never experience. Your tears aren't dysfunction, they're data. They're signals. They're emotional truth showing up before you have time to hide it. And I want you to hear this clearly, you are not breaking down. You are breaking open. And people who break open are the ones who heal, grow, understand, and connect on deeper levels than the world gives them credit for. But stay with me, because next part is where this gets even more interesting. In a moment, I'll show you the psychological trait that only about 15% of people have, and why it explains everything you've never understood about yourself until now. There's a reason you notice things long before anyone else even realizes something is happening. You don't just enter a room, you register it. The energy. The tension. The unspoken shift in someone's posture. While everyone else waits for something obvious to happen, you've already felt the first tremor beneath the surface. Because here's the hidden psychology no one ever bothered to explain. Your brain isn't wired to skim reality, it's wired to scan it. You're not dramatic. You're not imagining things. You're picking up data faster and deeper than most people even know exists. Think about it. How many times did you know someone was lying, even though their words sounded perfectly normal? How many times did you feel a friend slowly pulling away, before the distance showed up in texts or actions? How many times did you sense an argument brewing, even when everyone else thought the room was calm? Let me tell you something most therapists will never say out loud: some people's nervous systems operate at a higher resolution. Not higher emotion, higher perception. Psychologists call it sensory processing sensitivity, but that label barely scratches the surface. The truth is simpler: your mind doesn't filter emotional noise, it analyzes it. You detect patterns in tone, micro-expressions, pacing, energy shifts, the things most people are too distracted, too numb, or too overwhelmed to notice. And this is where the story flips. People who call you too sensitive aren't revealing anything about you. They're revealing their own emotional blind spots. They're not judging your depth, they're exposing their numbness. They can't feel what you feel, so your awareness threatens their comfort. They can't sense what you sense, so they assume you're exaggerating. You're not exaggerating. You're early. You're simply getting the signal before everyone else hears the alarm. And that early signal shows up everywhere. This is why crowded rooms drain you, not because you're weak, but because your brain is processing everything at once. This is why fake people exhaust you. Your mind keeps flagging the mismatch between their smile and their intention. This is why you struggle with letting things go. Your brain doesn't forget emotional information it already analyzed. But here's the part that truly changes the story: your sensitivity was never meant to make you feel overwhelmed. It was meant to make you aware. Awareness is rare. Awareness is powerful. Awareness is what helps you avoid toxic people long before their mask cracks. Yet awareness has a shadow side, and this is the part no one talks about. When your nervous system picks up more information than most, it's easy to slip into emotional overdrive, noticing too much, feeling too fast, processing too deeply. When this happens, sensitivity doesn't feel like a gift anymore. It feels like anxiety. Like burnout. Like you're carrying more than you have the capacity for. And that's exactly what we're going into next. Because in next part, I'm going to show you the one psychological trigger that turns sensitivity into anxiety, and the exact shift that stops it from hijacking your mind. There is a very precise moment when your sensitivity, your depth, your emotional awareness, your ability to feel the truth before anyone says a word, stops being your power and starts becoming your burden. And almost nobody recognizes it when it happens. Because here's the part that flips the whole story you've believed about yourself: sensitivity doesn't create anxiety, uncertainty does. Your mind is constantly collecting emotional data, tiny shifts in tone, tension, energy, expressions, things that most people walk right past. That ability is not the problem. The problem begins the moment your brain picks up more emotional information than it can interpret, and receives zero clarity from the people around you. Think about it. You notice the slight change in someone's voice, but they won't explain why. You feel the distance in someone's behavior, but they insist everything is fine. You sense something is off, but everyone around you says, "Relax." And this is where the psychological trigger flips: your brain fills in the silence with fear. Not because you're dramatic. Not because you're overreacting. But because your nervous system is wired to complete emotional patterns, and when it can't find the missing pieces, it protects you by imagining the worst-case scenario. That protection mode is what we call anxiety. Anxiety is simply your sensitivity with no direction. Your awareness with no answers. Your emotional intelligence with no explanation. This is why one unread message can ruin your entire evening. This is why you replay conversations in your mind until they don't feel real anymore. This is why your heart races over things other people barely notice. Your brain isn't trying to stress you out, it's trying desperately to solve an emotional puzzle you were never given the pieces for. But here's the twist that most people in your life will never understand. You don't get anxious because you feel too much, you get anxious because you predict too much. Your sensitivity is constantly forecasting emotional weather, scanning for danger long before the storm appears. And the storms you sense? They're usually subtle, invisible, unspoken. Which means you're left carrying the weight of everything no one else acknowledges. And when your nervous system can't confirm the danger or dismiss it, you get trapped in the middle, what psychologists call hypervigilant uncertainty. It's the zone where awareness turns into exhaustion. Where emotional depth becomes emotional overload. Where your gift feels like punishment. And here's something you've never been told plainly: your anxiety isn't a sign that something is wrong with you, it's a sign that you've been left alone to interpret emotional situations you didn't cause. Your sensitivity gathers raw emotional data. But your brain has learned to assume the worst, because too many times in your life, your instincts were right, and nobody believed you. That changes a person. It trains your nervous system to prepare for pain before it arrives. But remember this: anything learned can be unlearned. Your sensitivity isn't the enemy. The real enemy is the lack of clarity your sensitivity needs to feel safe. And when you understand that, you stop blaming yourself for reactions your body created to protect you. And in next few seconds, I'll show you something deeper: why sensitive people absorb emotions that were never theirs in the first place, and how to finally give them back. There's a reason you walk into a room and instantly feel something heavy, even before anyone speaks. You sense tension in the air, a shift in energy, a weight that doesn't belong to you, and the truth is startling: your nervous system was trained to absorb emotional pressure as a survival strategy. Read that again. Pause. Because this is what almost nobody tells sensitive people. If you grew up around someone who hid their feelings, exploded unpredictably, or refused to show vulnerability, your brain learned an automatic rule: if I don't absorb the tension, everything will fall apart. And for years, you lived by it. This wasn't your job. But you made it your responsibility, because you had no choice. Now, as an adult, that same instinct triggers you constantly. You adjust your tone, your words, your behavior, not because you want to, but because your nervous system believes it must. And it's exhausting. This is why being around certain people drains you faster than running a marathon. This is why one unread message can ruin your entire evening. This is why you can walk into your house after work and instantly feel something is off with your partner, even before they speak. Sometimes the emotion you're feeling isn't even yours. And yet your nervous system absorbs it anyway, like a sponge that never learned how to stop soaking up water. And that raises the question you've probably asked yourself countless times: why do I carry emotions that don't belong to me? Why do I feel responsible for everyone else? Why am I drained at the end of the day when nothing actually happened? Because your sensitivity responds to emotional pressure instead of emotional truth. You're reacting to the atmosphere, not to your own reality. And until you recognize that, you'll keep believing that every heavy feeling is actually yours. But here's the turning point, and it's powerful: you can give back what was never yours. Awareness is the first step. Feeling someone else's discomfort doesn't mean you must fix it. Sensing tension doesn't make it your responsibility. Noticing unspoken emotions doesn't make them yours to carry. When you separate empathy from responsibility, you regain control over your nervous system. You stop absorbing everything around you, and suddenly, your sensitivity becomes your gift again, not your burden. And in part, we're shifting from understanding it to defeating it. I'll show you exactly how to stop absorbing, stop predicting, and finally stop carrying emotional weight that was never yours, so your depth no longer feels like a trap, but a superpower. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with weights that don't belong to you, every stressful conversation, every unspoken disappointment, every invisible tension from others. That's exactly what being highly sensitive can feel like, every single day, until you realize it doesn't have to be this way. And here's the first truth: empathy doesn't mean ownership. Feeling someone else's pain doesn't make it yours to fix. Yet, for years, your nervous system was trained to blur that line. The first shift is awareness. Pause. Breathe. Let it sink in. When a heavy feeling arises, ask yourself, is this mine, or is it theirs? That simple question is a reset button. It allows you to notice a borrowed emotion without immediately carrying it. Picture it like opening your hand and letting sand fall away, some you keep, some you release. And one small daily habit can change everything. Most sensitive people never do it. Next, draw an internal boundary. This subtle mental line is powerful. You don't have to shut down. You don't have to avoid anyone. But when someone else is stressed, notice it, acknowledge it, and remind yourself, I can feel, but I don't have to carry. And it works even better when you integrate your body. Tension often lingers physically. Stretch. Breathe deeply. Walk while consciously imagining exhaling what isn't yours. Every breath becomes proof to your nervous system, not everything is mine to carry. And here's a rehook most people overlook: your environment amplifies everything. Sensitive people thrive in spaces where empathy is balanced, not forced. Notice how you feel around your closest friends. Are you lighter, or still carrying tension? Curate your surroundings. Align with people who process emotions without dumping them on you. The right environment reinforces boundaries and keeps your nervous system from running in overdrive. Finally, reframe your sensitivity. It's not a weakness. It's a superpower. But like any power, without control, it becomes a liability. Once you reclaim your energy, your sensitivity transforms into clarity, insight, and peace. You begin to feel life in full depth, without being drowned by everyone else's waves. And the beauty is, this is just the start. One habit, one boundary, one conscious breath at a time, you shift your nervous system from reactive to empowered. In the next part, we'll go even deeper. I'll reveal the daily mental habits that highly sensitive people use to stay calm, grounded, and unstoppable, the kind of psychological practices that train your nervous system to keep the power of your sensitivity without letting it control your life. Imagine starting your day carrying invisible weights that aren't yours, the stress, tension, and emotions of everyone around you. Most sensitive people wake up this way, but it doesn't have to be that way. The first habit that changes everything is a morning mental check-in. Before you touch your phone, before you open emails, pause. Ask yourself, how do I feel right now? Which feelings are mine, and which belong to others? And here's the kicker, most sensitive people skip this step. Yet this small pause trains your mind to recognize borrowed emotions before they hijack your nervous system. Next, set internal boundaries. Picture invisible fences around your energy. When someone is stressed or anxious, notice it, acknowledge it, and mentally say, I can feel this, but I don't have to carry it. And here's a small micro-hook to remember, simply stating it mentally is enough. You don't need to act. Your nervous system needs the boundary more than your social performance does. The third habit is physical release. Highly sensitive people often store unprocessed emotions in their bodies, tight shoulders, clenched jaws, restless legs. Integrate movement into your day. Stretch before a meeting, imagining tension leaving your body. Take deep breaths, shake your hands, walk mindfully. Every breath and movement becomes proof to your nervous system, not everything is mine to carry. And one tiny adjustment most sensitive people never make, but it changes everything, is doing this consistently in small moments throughout the day. Habit 4 is curating your environment. Your surroundings either train your nervous system to stay calm or push it into overdrive. Notice how you feel around your closest friends. Are you lighter, or still carrying tension? Align yourself with people who process emotions without offloading them onto you. Distance yourself, even subtly, from those who drain your energy. And here's the hook, your environment doesn't just influence your mood, it literally trains your nervous system over time. Finally, practice evening reflection and reframing. Each night, review your day. Ask, what did I notice that others missed? How did my depth give me insight, protection, or understanding? Celebrate small victories. Gratitude shifts your identity from too sensitive to emotionally intelligent. And here's a rehook, when your sensitivity becomes your asset instead of your liability, everything changes, your focus, your energy, your clarity, your relationships. The beauty of these habits is that they compound. Awareness in the morning, boundaries during interactions, movement for release, curated environments, and reflective reframing at night, together, they retrain your nervous system. Your sensitivity stops feeling like a trap and becomes a superpower. You no longer absorb what isn't yours. You navigate life with clarity, calm, and confidence. And this is only the start, mastering your sensitivity is a lifelong superpower. If this video helped you see your sensitivity in a new light, hit like and share it with someone who needs this perspective. And don't stop here, check out our next video, The Psychology of People Who Are Always Calm, where we break down the daily habits and mindset shifts that make calmness automatic, even in chaos. Click now and learn how to train your mind to stay grounded, focused, and unshakable. I guarantee, once you apply these habits, you'll notice a difference by tomorrow.